Father David here. It's Sunday and time for your weekly sermon. And today's gospel lesson focuses on Jesus healing a woman bent over for 18 years, but he did so on a Sabbath day in the synagogue. Today's homily is entitled Thinking Lightly. Today's gospel is an invitation to step back from our usual way of looking at life, at each other, and at the problems that we all face. It's an invitation to hold our beliefs lightly rather than tightly, since love and spirit and freedom are way more like water than they are like stone. And while we often think of our religious beliefs as carved in stone, think of the Ten Commandments. In Jesus, the living faith is much more fluid because it responds to actual human needs and predicaments, which are always changing. We begin today with our poor rabbi. He's not a bad guy, but he's all tied up and handcuffed in his own ideas about God. For him, God sets the rules and we follow no matter what. And since it's the Sabbath, even though this woman's been suffering for a very long time, she's going to have to wait at least one more day. His devotion to this idea of God creates a place of worship where rules live and people die. But God is a God of liberation. God's cry is, "Let my people go." And that's the crux of today's encounter with Jesus. In the reading just before today's in Luke's gospel, 18 men were killed when a tower fell on them. And people were suggesting, as people suggest today, that the reason for their misfortune is they did something bad. Today, this woman appears after 18 years of being afflicted, and there is this unspoken agreement that she must have done something to deserve this. And into this tied up, handcuffed view of God comes Jesus, who says of the 18 killed, they were no different from anyone else. Bad things happen because in life, bad things happen. It's not God pulling those strings. And the woman bent for 18 years is not an undeserving sinner, but a daughter of Abraham, a fellow human being, once invisible. But now, because of a touch, you can see her, once chased off into the margins, but now, because of love, she commands center stage. There's an old story of an elderly African American woman who came to worship in an all white church, and the congregation immediately throws her out. And yet, undeterred, she stands up, brushes herself off, and begins to walk down the road, where she meets Jesus, who takes her by the arm. And as she sings alleluias, she steps off of the dusty road up into the air, arm in arm with her Lord. How we see determines what we believe. How we see determines how we believe. This week marks the 406th anniversary of the arrival of African Americans to the United States, people who were the first of what were to become over 12 million enslaved human beings. My white forebears saw these people as little more than animals, to be bought and sold, worked to death, controlled and dominated. My contemporary white brothers and sisters too often look at their own place in our society and believe that white people are socially dominant because they deserve to be so. And yet, in truth, the wealth that this nation so much enjoys was very much built on the back of enslaved people. It was that uncompensated labor that created the vast cotton industries in the South and the commercial shipping and trading industries in the North, paving the way for the Industrial Revolution. The vast wealth that was created was channeled by, for, and in favor of white people. And when slavery ended as an institution, steps were made to ensure that the situation didn't change too much. There has been 150 years of mass incarceration of Black people, and slavery in jail is permitted in the U.S. Constitution. For those not in prison, Jim Crow did its work, and for those who didn't happen to live in the Deep South where Jim Crow worked, redlining, which kept Black folks out of neighborhoods and therefore out of the ability to create generational wealth, took over. And then, like the crowds who were talking about those 18 killed by the collapsed tower, we white folks step back and look at the predicament of Black poverty and say, it's your fault. Blame the victim. And like that all-white church who threw that Black woman out on her ear, we create a God who is fine and dandy with these horrific situations. But Jesus calls us to a new place. And to get there, I think, requires us to learn something about who God actually is. And this requires contemplation. Not that you have to wear brown robes and join a monastery. Contemplation can happen any time that we quiet ourselves, whether it's a church pew or a walk in a beautiful forest or sitting at the kitchen table. Contemplation simply invites us to sit peacefully, nestled in the lap of God, letting go of thoughts, fears, and feelings. Contemplation then opens us to the vast mystery, to that which is really real. And in that opening, we come to see that the root of our violence and fear and treating human beings as the other, it is the illusion of separation from God, from ourselves, from creation that allows such ways of being. When we don't know how to live in a place of union, which is just another word for love, that's when we resort to violence, fear, anger, judgment, and prejudice. Contemplation teaches us to honor the differences, but to also realize that we are so much more than the surface of things like nationality, color, creed, or sexual orientation. Contemplation introduces us once again to our true self. Contemplation allows us to discover that when we become little enough, naked enough, and honest enough, then we discover, lo and behold, that we are more than enough. This is the gospel wisdom. At this place of both poverty and freedom, we have nothing to prove, nothing to protect. We can connect with everybody and everything because the truth is everyone and everything belongs. So says my friend Richard Rohr. And yet spiritual awakening doesn't leave us immune to our human condition. It brings us to the heart of reality where we mourn and rage, bow and give thanks, to a place where we might ache and surrender. So says my other friend, Miss Starr. The word from Jesus this morning is that real faith finds itself in the trenches, in the hopes and dreams of ordinary life. As Gibran said so long ago, your daily life is your religion. So recognizing, healing, and rejecting the false separation between heaven and earth, creation and the divine, this is the Christian mission. And whether it's Jesus working on the Sabbath to heal a woman or God letting go of everything to become a human being, the whole point and purpose of our faith is that everything is sacred, everyone is holy. And with that insight, with that truth held firmly and with a smile, perhaps we can encounter one another not as enemies or challengers or competitors for scarce resources, but as siblings, the siblings we have always been. Siblings called to bring this marvelous news to everyone and to every place. God bless you all.